In the dusty heart of rural Texas, where the sun baked the earth into cracked clay and the wind whispered secrets through the mesquite trees, Jack Harlan steered his battered pickup truck down a lonely stretch of highway. The rancher, a man in his late 50s with calloused hands and a weathered face etched by years of hardship, gripped the wheel tighter as memories flooded his mind. It had been 3 years since the drought claimed his cattle, 2 since his wife left him for the city lights, and 1 since he'd buried his only daughter, Lily, after a sudden illness stole her away at just 8 years old. Jack's ranch was a shadow of its former self, fences sagging, barns empty, and his bank account drier than the parched soil. He was heading to town to sell his last few tools, hoping to scrape together enough for groceries, when he spotted a small figure by the roadside, a girl no older than 10, standing with a faded doll clutched in her arms. She waved him down with a desperation that pierced the air like a coyote's howl. Jack pulled over, dust swirling around his tires, and rolled down the window. The girl approached hesitantly, her bare feet caked in dirt, her dress a patchwork of men's. Her eyes, wide and pleading, met his. "Mister," she said in a voice trembling with exhaustion, "my brother hasn't eaten in 3 days. Can you buy my doll?" Jack froze, his heart skipping a beat. The doll, she held it out like a precious relic, was a rag doll with button eyes and a stitched smile, its fabric worn but familiar. Doll familiar. It was identical to the one he'd hand-sewn for Lily on her 5th birthday, using scraps from his wife's old quilts. How could this be? He hadn't seen one like it since he'd lost everything. Swallowing hard, Jack stepped out of the truck, his boots crunching on the gravel. The girl, who introduced herself as Mia, explained in halting words how her family had fallen on hard times. Her father, a migrant worker, had been injured in a farm accident, and her mother worked double shifts at a diner just to keep the lights on in their tiny trailer. Mia's little brother, Tommy, was only 4, and the pantry had run empty. The doll was her most treasured possession, a gift from her grandmother before she passed. "It's all I have to sell," Mia whispered, tears welling up. "Please, sir. Is so hungry." Jack's mind raced. It was no stranger to struggle, the ranch had been in his family for generations, but nature's cruelty and economic woes had whittled it down to bones. Yet here was this child, offering her innocence for survival. A profound realization hit him, in his grief, he'd isolated himself, convinced the world was a pit of loss. But kindness? It was a seed that could still sprout in barren soil. As Mia spoke, Jack noticed something else, a locket around her neck, glinting in the sun. It was silver, engraved with a delicate ele. His breath caught. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia fiddled with it. "My grandma gave it to me. Said it belonged to her sister, who died young." Jack's world tilted. His daughter Lily had worn an identical locket, a family heirloom passed from his wife's side. He'd lost it in the chaos after her funeral, assuming it was gone forever. "Could this be?" He asked for her family's name, and Mia said Rodriguez, but my grandma was Harlan before she married. Harlan. His wife's maiden name was different, but, no, wait. His sister-in-law had married a Rodriguez years ago, after a falling out with the family. They lost touch during the hard times. Was Mia his great-niece? The unexpected turn shattered his composure. This wasn't just a stranger, this was blood, a connection to the family he'd thought fractured beyond repair. Overwhelmed, Jack knelt to Mia's level, his knees protesting against the hard ground. "Tell you what," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'll buy that doll, but only if you take me to your family." Mia's eyes lit up with cautious hope, and she nodded. They climbed into his truck, the doll resting on the seat between them like a bridge across generations. As they drove the short distance to the trailer park on the outskirts of town, Jack's mind swirled with regrets. It had been so consumed by his own pain that he'd forgotten the web of humanity that bound us all. The power of selflessness, he realized, wasn't in grand gestures but in recognizing the shared struggles that made us human. Arriving at the trailer, Jack was met with a scene that mirrored his own despair, a modest home with peeling paint, a yard littered with broken toys, and inside, a weary mother named Elena tending to a pale, listless Tommy. Elena's eyes widened in recognition when she saw Jack. "Uncle Jack," she gasped. It was true, Elena's mother was his late wife's sister, estranged after a family feud over inheritance that seemed trivial now. The realization deepened, Mia was family, Tommy too. The rancher, who had frozen at the sight of the doll, now thought in the warmth of reconnection. But the emotional climax came when Tommy, seeing the stranger, clung to his sister. Jack, pulling out his wallet, meager as it was, handed over every bill he had, enough to buy food for weeks. "This ain't charity," he said firmly. "It's family." "And that doll?" "Keep it. It's yours, just like Lily would want." Elena's tears flowed as she hugged him, the first embrace in years. But Jack wasn't done. Drawing on a spark of inspiration, he proposed something transformative. His ranch, though struggling, had unused land. With Elena's husband's experience in farming and Mia's youthful energy, they could partner up, plant crops resistant to drought, raise chickens, turn the tide together. It was an act of compassion born from his own losses, a generous leap that promised renewal. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and hope, Jack watched Mia and Tommy share a simple meal he'd bought on the way. The boy's smile, faint but genuine, was a balm to his soul. In the days that followed, the unexpected alliance blossomed. Jack taught Mia how to mend fences, both literal and figurative, while Elena's family brought laughter back to the ranch house. The dal, now a symbol of resilience, sat on a shelf overlooking their shared meals. Word spread in the community, inspiring neighbors to pitch in, seeds from one, tools from another. The ranch revived, not just in yield but in spirit. Jack, once frozen in grief, found purpose in selflessness, realizing that humanity's true power lay in lifting others when we ourselves are down. Years later, as Mia grew into a young woman pursuing a scholarship in agriculture, she often recounted the story to friends. "It started with a doll and a hungry brother," she'd say, "but it ended with a family reborn." The message was clear and uplifting: in a world of hardships, kindness is the unexpected turn that transforms despair into hope. No matter the drought of the soul or soul, one act of generosity can water the seeds of tomorrow, leaving us all inspired to reach out, to connect, and to believe in the enduring light of humanity.